it's a continuing theme of trying to get gun rights for people who smoke weed. When I was looking at this yesterday, my first flush was, this is continuation, and we'll look at it down the line. Then I read the government's brief, and it pissed me off. The nonsense they put into this to oppose people who smoke weed getting gun rights. Now, what happened here is that two marijuana users and someone who wanted to buy guns, but he didn't think he could if he used marijuana, they sued the federal government over a gun law that says you can't buy or possess a gun or ammunition if you're an illegal user of controlled substances, including marijuana. And they didn't challenge the law as it was written. They challenged as it was applied to marijuana. Okay? And this was based upon the Bruin case that came down 2 years ago, and they got their case dismissed. And this, I assume, was a case they were going to file, knew they were going to have losses along the way. They wanted to get it up the chain of command to the appellate court and the Supreme Court, see if they could finally challenge this. Well, as the appeal was getting perfected, the Supreme Court last October accepted a case called Rahimi, where a guy had been denied his gun rights because he had, threatened his significant other with a gun, got a restraining order against him, domestic violence, blah, 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 blah. And so they put the whole case on hold until the federal government decided the Rahimi case. And when the federal Supreme Court, I'm sorry, not the government, when the Supreme Court decided it, they took a look back historically at what they had done with people that were similarly situated and tried to look for analogous situations. And I remember commenting, what the hell does an analogy mean? How do we do this? And they pointed to people who were intoxicated. They would, if you were drunker than Hogan's goat, they might take your guns away from you. If you're going to a party where everyone's going to get drunk, they might restrict guns at the party. Or if you were traveling armed or going armed and you were a threat to people, they could take your guns away from you if you were an armed menace out there, okay? That was historically where they decided Rahimi, and they're still back in the period of 1789 to 1791. And I think that's where the Supreme Court wants them to look and stop all the, let's weigh and balance people's interests here. It's like, no, read the goddamn amendment. What does it say? And how did they handle this in the 1791 when this became the law of the land? And that's where we want to focus our attention. So what I saw in the brief here is that in order to say that marijuana users are dangerous somehow, the court received from the federal government the following information in their brief. Individuals who possess firearms while engaged in the regular use of illegal drugs endanger public safety in multiple ways. First, drug users may mishandle firearms or use firearms to commit crimes because of drug-induced changes in their physiological, cognitive ability and mood. Okay? Yeah, horse shit, but there we have it. Second, illegal drug users may commit crime in order to obtain money to buy drugs. Oh, yeah. Okay, we're going to go knock off a liquor store to go buy a doobie. Okay? Third, violent crime may occur as part of the drug business or culture. And fourth, armed drug users endanger themselves. Most gun deaths are suicide, not homicides, okay? And drug users, including marijuana users, pose a higher risk of suicide than ordinary citizens. Now, when I read this, I got to tell you, it can piss me off. But it's like when I point out what the DEA has to say in their pleadings and when they make official statements, now you get to see what the Department of Justice has to say about marijuana when you ask them to justify why you want to take guns away from marijuana users. This is absolute nonsense. They also made an analogy that as we turned into the 20th century, governments around the United States were increasingly taking action to try and limit the people who were addicted to drugs from having guns. Okay, well, that's a whole nother logical fallacy that we're dealing with here. Because I don't know if you remember that the British dumped opium in China, didn't give two shits about it. But when opium appeared in London, all of a sudden, oh, we got a major problem here. And as we entered the 20th century, there were conservative, we might call them evangelical Christians today, who took over the anti-alcohol movement, who took over the anti-drug movement, and they were able to push what we call the Harrison Anti-Narcotic Act of 1912, but they never got marijuana included. And it wasn't until 1937 that marijuana became federally illegal, because people were looking around going, you know, I don't buy all the bullshit we're hearing about smoking weed's going to make white women want to marry black men or some nonsense like that. They didn't buy it. And it was economic factors that brought marijuana to be illegal in 1937. And I don't know if you know who John Ehrlichman was, but he worked for Nixon in 1970, when they passed the Controlled Substances Act, he was pretty clear that they put marijuana as a prohibited substance. They'd go out and prosecute the hippies, and they made heroin in that same category because they wanted to prosecute the blacks, who I might add were showing up strapped with guns at these events and scaring the shit out of these white folks. Oh, the historical perspective on how substance use was used to take away your gun rights is just not there. The most analogous substance out there is alcohol, because if you get shit-faced with alcohol and you're dangerous, you know, maybe you shouldn't be strapped with a gun. They take it away temporarily, give it back to you when you're sober. But other than that, that's how they dealt with drugs until we get into the 20th century, and marijuana wasn't included until 1937. So what I'm seeing here is the federal government is trying to throw as much mud against the wall as it can to get it to stick, but they're throwing mud about us, people who consume cannabis. That again, we can't be trusted. Oh, we just might go out and, you know, knock off somebody's, you know, a bank to get money to buy weed. We might kill ourselves. Oh, there's guns and crime involved in the drug business. Well, that may all be true, but that's all based upon prohibition of drugs, not what the drugs do to you. So what I see here is continuing nonsense coming out of the federal government about why you should not be able to have a gun, buy a gun, possess it, get ammunition if you smoke weed. This is an ongoing slap in the face to those of us who do this and know that, you know, you can trust me watching your grandkids. Just because I smoke weed doesn't mean I'm going to go out and throw them off a bridge or some bullshit like that. And we need to move away from this nonsense, but it continues to rear its ugly head. And when I see it, I call it out. I'm going to throw this back at you. What do you all think about this nonsense coming out of the Department of Justice?
This is all nonsense, Dale. Yeah, the fact that they're even trying to make these arguments in regards to this substance is just kind of atrocious, and an infringement on all Americans' constitutional rights to have the freedom and liberty to choose what they want to choose.
Right. And they're fucking hypocrites. I mean, Jesus Christ. Every one of these people is okay with gun owners drinking alcohol. And I had looked it up. An estimated 1 in 3 gun homicide perpetrators drank heavily before murdering their victims. There was 18,450 homicides last year. So roughly 6,150 people were murdered by drunks. And we're talking about not allowing cannabis users to possess a gun is stupid. Just so stupid.
To be fair, it is also against the law to have a gun in your possession while you're drinking alcohol. But, I mean, they don't prohibit the ownership, which I think is the problem.
It's not illegal to own one, though, if you drink alcohol.
Yeah, it's illegal to be like toting around and firing it off if you're drunk.
Yeah, because alcohol is liquid stupid. Guns don't have any content. You pull that trigger, it's going to hit whatever's in front of it.
Very true. Very true. I had a friend. He was the lead homicide prosecutor, and he told me that he had never read a police report that involved cannabis with any type of domestic violence or any type of shooting, homicide in regards, unless it was in regards with like a drug deal gone bad type of thing. But that wasn't. You know what I'm saying?
Different. Yeah,
that's a different type of set of circumstances.
Your wife pisses you off, you go outside, smoke a joint, come back in, and have dinner with the family.
And drug
Well,
deals
and
going bad. Go ahead. Sorry.
most homicides are personal. Kill people you know.
Exactly.
And liquid stupid, it lowers your inhibitions and it heightens your anger, and so the next thing you know, you're fighting with somebody and you shoot them. And as Jenny Beth knows, hey, if you're fighting with the old lady, go out and smoke a joint. Okay, look at the stars, walk around, come back in. Okay, admit what you did and admit your wife's right and move on with life.
Yes, admit she's. Dale, say that again for Mrs. Schafer. Admit your wife's right.
Admit you're wrong and admit your wife's right and just move on.
I love that. That's a
Marijuana
happy
helps
marriage.
you come to that realization. It's a happy marriage if your wife is right all the time and you keep her happy.
I mean, Rachelle, you're getting ready to get married. What do you think about that?
Yes, she is.
It's not the man's. I just gotta say, it's not the man's job to keep the wife happy. She has to make sure that she finds her own happiness.
Did you say Rachelle or Rochelle?
Oh, you.
I said Rachelle.
Yeah, I thought so.
Rachelle, you go.
I'm here. I agree with both with Rico and Dale on this. Like, people have personal responsibility, but I am always right. So there's that too.
See, I feel you on that. And Stone, you were saying something, Stone?
I like that.